The first time Jada Patterson spilled beer on me, I thought it was fate. The National was playing at the Muret Theater in Indianapolis, and I was 3 songs deep into Fake Empire when this gorgeous woman with dark, curly hair and sharp brown eyes stumbled into me. Her Heineken splashed across my favorite Modest Mouse t-shirt, the faded gray one I'd had since college. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She grabbed napkins from somewhere, dabbing at my chest like she could undo physics. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I laughed. "It's fine, the shirt needed character anyway." She looked up at me then, and something clicked. You know that feeling, like the universe just rearranged itself around you. "I'm Jada," she said. "Julian." And that was it. 6 years ago. 6 years of marriage. 6 years of building a life in our 2-bedroom apartment in Broad Ripple, just north of downtown Indianapolis. 6 years of thinking I'd found my person. Funny how wrong you can be. September 2019. I came home from my shift at the FedEx distribution center on the west side, tired but content. The smell of garlic and onions hit me as I walked through the door. Jada was making her famous chicken piccata. "Hey, babe," she smiled over her shoulder, stirring something in the skillet. "How was work?" "Same old. Martinez called in sick again, so I had to cover his section." I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and kicked off my steel-toed boots. "You." Mrs. Henderson came in for her cleaning, talked my ear off about her grandson's baseball league for 45 minutes. She rolled her eyes, but she was still smiling. "Oh, and Dr. Patel said the new hygienist starts Monday." I grabbed a beer from the fridge and leaned against the counter, watching her cook. At 33, Jada was still the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Those sharp cheekbones, the way her hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders, the little dimple that appeared when she was concentrating. "So what's new at FedEx?" she asked, plating the chicken. "Any exciting packages, secret government documents?" I laughed. "Mostly just Amazon orders and medical supplies. Oh, but we got a new admin assistant in the office, Dakota something. She's pretty sharp, used to work in logistics at the airport." Jada's hand paused mid-motion, just for a second. If I hadn't been watching her, I would have missed it. "Dakota," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "That's an interesting name." "Yeah, she's from Montana originally, hence the name, I guess." Jada resumed plating, but something had shifted. The air felt different, heavier. "Is she pretty?" I blinked. "What? I don't know, I guess. I didn't really notice." Jada set the plates on the table, still smiling, but her eyes had gone flat, cold, like someone had flipped a switch behind them. "Dinner's ready," she said. We ate in silence. "Here's something you need to understand about my wife. Jada Patterson was the youngest of 5 kids, 4 older brothers. In a house full of boys in Terre Haute, Indiana, direct confrontation was useless. Tattling was social suicide. So little Jada learned to fight differently. She learned to wait, to plan, to strike when no one expected it. I found this out the hard way 2 years into our marriage. We were doing spring cleaning, sorting through closets, bagging clothes for Goodwill, tossing old magazines. I was hauling bags to the curb, trying to beat the garbage truck, moving fast and not really paying attention. One of those bags had Jada's dry cleaning in it, 3 dresses, gone. When she realized what happened, she confronted me, calmly, rationally. I apologized profusely. It was an honest mistake. I was rushing. I felt terrible. "It's fine," she said, her voice soft. "Accidents happen." I went to bed relieved, crisis averted. The next morning, I opened my closet to find it empty. Every single pair of pants I owned, jeans, khakis, dress pants, even my good suit trousers, gone, vanished, like they'd never existed. My phone buzzed with a text from Jada. "Check Goodwill. I had to wear sweatpants to work." Sweatpants. To a job where I supervise a team of 15 people. It cost me $600 to replace everything. Money we didn't have, and Jada never apologized, never acknowledged she'd done anything wrong. In her mind, she'd balanced the scales. 3 dresses for 12 pairs of pants. That was justice. I called it her court processing fee, the extra 50% she tacked onto every punishment. And the thing is, I accepted it. I told myself this was just part of who she was, the price of admission for loving a woman who made me feel alive. Everyone has quirks, right? Some people leave the toilet seat up. Some people squeeze the toothpaste from the middle. My wife occasionally waged psychological warfare over minor grievances. Same thing. The FedEx holiday party was held at St. Elmo Steakhouse downtown, one of those old-school Indianapolis institutions with dark wood paneling and waiters in white jackets. October 2019. The weather had just started to turn, leaves crunching under our feet as we walked from the parking garage. Jada looked stunning in a deep green dress that hugged her curves. I was wearing my one good suit, the replacement for the one she'd donated to Goodwill. "You clean up nice, Mr. Mercer," she said, straightening my tie. "You're not so bad yourself, Mrs. Mercer." We walked in arm in arm, the picture of a happy couple. The party was already in full swing. My coworkers clustered around the bar, spouses making awkward small talk, the DJ playing generic corporate-approved music. I spotted my supervisor, Greg, and waved. That's when Dakota Reeves walked over. She was 28, blonde, with the kind of wholesome Midwestern pretty that belonged on a cereal commercial. Nothing provocative about her. She was wearing a modest navy dress and sensible heels. "Hey, Julian, great party, right?" She smiled brightly. "I wanted to ask you about the promotion track. Greg mentioned you started in the warehouse and worked your way up." "Yeah, it took me about 4 years. Started loading trucks. Now I'm coordinating shipments for the whole West Side operation." "That's amazing." "I'm hoping to move into operations eventually. Any advice?" We talked for maybe 15 minutes, completely professional. She asked about certifications. I told her about the management training program. We discussed the upcoming peak season. Normal coworker stuff. I didn't notice Jada watching from across the room. Didn't see the way her jaw tightened, the way she gripped her wine glass like she wanted to shatter it. On the drive home, she was silent, that dangerous silence I'd learned to recognize. "So, Dakota," her voice was ice. "She's pretty. Jada, come on, she's a coworker. She wanted career advice. Standing that close, talking that long, laughing like that." Laughing. We were having a professional conversation. "Right, professional." She turned to look out the window. "I saw the way she looked at you, Julian. I'm not blind." I sighed. "Babe, there's nothing going on, I promise." She didn't respond. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. That night she initiated sex, but it wasn't loving. It was aggressive, possessive. Like she was marking her territory, claiming what was hers. Afterward, she fell asleep with her head on my chest, and I stared at the ceiling wondering what the hell had just happened. November slid into December, and I started noticing things. Small things at first. Jada started going to the gym after work, weird, because she'd always said she hated exercise. Her phone was suddenly glued to her hand, even in the bathroom. Our shared iPad got a new password. She bought new lingerie, lacy stuff. Expensive. I never saw her wear any of it. I told myself I was being paranoid, projecting my own insecurities, becoming the jealous husband I'd always sworn I'd never be. "You're being crazy," I muttered to myself, watching her get ready for work one morning. She's allowed to go to the gym. She's allowed to have privacy. But doubt is a poison. Once it gets in, it spreads. I confided in my best friend Alex over beers at the Rusty Nail, a dive bar on Mass Ave that we'd been going to since our 20s. Alex was a mechanic at the Midas on 38th Street, good with his hands, better with advice. He'd been through a brutal divorce 2 years earlier, and he knew the signs. "Brother," he said, setting down his Budweiser, "I've seen this movie before. It doesn't end well. Jada's not like that. She wouldn't. They all wouldn't until they do." He fixed me with a look. "I'm not saying she's cheating. I'm saying trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is." I shook my head. "She's just stressed. Work's been crazy. The holidays coming up." Alex shrugged. "Maybe, but keep your eyes open, Jules. That's all I'm saying." I went home that night and watched Jada sleep. Her face was peaceful, innocent. The woman I'd loved for 6 years, the woman I'd built a life with, she couldn't be cheating on me, could she? 2 weeks after the holiday party, Jada sat me down at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pen. "We need to talk about our marriage," she said. My stomach dropped. Those words, those 6 words that never lead anywhere good. "Okay," I said carefully. "What's going on?" She slid the legal pad toward me. On it, she'd written a numbered list. I scanned it, my confusion growing with each line. Full access to all passwords, email, social media, work accounts. Check-in text every 30 minutes when away from home, GPS tracking app installed on phone, Life 360. No unsupervised contact with any female coworker, client, or acquaintance transfer to different department to avoid Dakota Reeves. I looked up at her. "Jada, what is this?" "It's how we save our marriage." Her voice was calm, reasonable, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "You've been distant lately, secretive. I need to know I can trust you." I haven't been secretive. I've been working overtime because it's peak season. And Dakota? There's nothing going on with Dakota. She's a coworker. I've talked to her maybe 3 times total. Jada's expression didn't change. If you're innocent, you have nothing to hide. Innocent people don't refuse transparency. I stared at the list again. GPS tracking, check-ins every 30 minutes. This was insane. This was the kind of thing controlling boyfriends did in Lifetime movies. Jada, this is crazy. You're asking me to... Her phone buzzed on the table. Then again. And again. 7 times in the span of a minute. She didn't look at it, didn't even glance down. Who's texting you? I asked. No one, work group chat. She flipped the phone face down. We're talking about your behavior right now, Julian, don't deflect. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. She was demanding complete transparency from me while her phone was blowing up with messages she refused to acknowledge. But I was tired. So damn tired of the tension, the silent treatments, the cold shoulders. If agreeing to her insane demands would bring peace, maybe it was worth it. Fine, I said. I'll do it. Most of it anyway, but I'm not transferring departments. That would tank Dakota's career for no reason, and I won't do that to her. Jada's eyes flashed, but she nodded. We'll revisit that later. For now, this is a good start. She actually smiled, like we just negotiated a business deal. I signed my freedom away because I loved her. God, I was an idiot. The next few weeks were hell. Every 30 minutes, no matter what I was doing, I had to text Jada. In meetings, I'd feel my phone vibrate and have to discreetly type out a response under the table. On the warehouse floor, I'd stop mid-conversation to check in. My coworkers started noticing. Mercer, you okay? Greg asked one day, catching me frantically texting behind a stack of pallets. You seem jumpy. Family stuff, I mumbled. It's fine. Dakota approached me once in the break room, her face concerned. Julian, did I do something wrong? You've been avoiding me. I couldn't even look at her. No, you're fine, just busy. I walked away before she could say anything else, guilt churning in my stomach. I was treating her like a pariah because my wife was jealous of a conversation we'd had about supply chain management. This was insane. I knew it was insane. But every time I thought about pushing back, I remembered the pants. The vinyl collection she'd lost after I forgot her mother's birthday. The credit card bills she'd maxed out when I worked late without calling. Hurricane Jada was not someone you wanted to provoke. The Thursday before Christmas, Jada dragged me to a happy hour at 3 Olives, a swanky bar in the financial district. Apparently her dental practice shared some clients with Pierce and Associates Insurance, and they'd been invited to the firm's weekly mixer. It's good for networking, she said, adjusting her earrings in the mirror. Plus, Dr. Patel said attendance is basically mandatory if I want that senior hygienist position. I put on my good suit, the second good suit I'd bought after the first one went to Goodwill, and tried to look enthusiastic. 3 Olives was everything I hated about fancy bars. Leather club chairs, hunting prints on the walls, overpriced cocktails with pretentious names. The crowd was all suits and designer dresses, the kind of people who said summer as a verb. Jada dove into the crowd immediately, working the room like she was born to it. I grabbed a beer and found a quiet corner watching her transform. This was another side of her, the chameleon. At home, she was possessive and controlling. Here, she was charming, magnetic, everyone's best friend. First time at one of these, I turned to find a woman about my age with brown hair and tired eyes. She was nursing a glass of white wine and looking at the crowd with undisguised disdain. That obvious, she smiled. You have that shell-shocked look. I'm Claire Whitmore. Julian Mercer. Let me guess, spouse of someone who works here. Close. My wife's dental practice does work with the firm. Ah, Claire nodded toward a cluster of men in expensive suits. My husband works here. That's him, the one telling the loud story. I followed her gaze to a guy in his late 30s. Soft around the middle, thinning hair slicked back, ruddy face. He was gesturing expansively while the people around him laughed at whatever joke he was telling. Dalton Whitmore III, Claire said, and I couldn't miss the bitterness in her voice. Insurance claims adjuster, 3rd generation at Pierce and Associates, not that he'd let you forget it. As if sensing our attention, Dalton looked over. His eyes landed on me, then slid to Jada, who was chatting with a group nearby. Something flickered in his expression, something predatory. He excused himself from his group and walked over. Claire, and who's this? He shook my hand with the kind of grip that was trying too hard to assert dominance. Dalton Whitmore. Julian Mercer. Mercer, he pretended to think. Oh, you must be Jada's husband, she's mentioned you. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Shipping coordinator right at FedEx? That's right. Fascinating work, I'm sure, very straightforward. The condescension dripped from every syllable. Must be nice not having to worry about market fluctuations and client portfolios. I felt Claire tense beside me. It has its challenges, I said evenly. Dalton was already looking past me, his attention fixed on Jada. If you'll excuse me, I should go say hello to your lovely wife. Industry talk, you understand. He walked away without waiting for a response, making a beeline for Jada. I watched him lean in close, whispering something that made her laugh. He's always like that, Claire said quietly. Don't take it personally. Your husband seems confident. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's one word for it. She took a long sip of wine. Can I ask you something? Has your wife been acting differently lately? I turned to look at her sharply. What do you mean? Dalton's been different the past few months, more confident, smug almost, like he knows a secret nobody else does. She met my eyes. I can't shake the feeling something's going on. My stomach nodded. Jada's been accusing me of cheating with a coworker. But she's the one acting suspicious. Claire was quiet for a moment, then she pulled out her phone. Give me your number if either of us finds out anything. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. We exchanged numbers just as Jada appeared at my elbow. Making friends? Her voice was light, but her eyes were sharp, flicking between me and Claire. Just commiserating about being dragged to these things, I said. Jada's smile didn't waver, but I saw Kelsey Monroe, one of her co-workers from the dental office, whisper something in her ear. Jada's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. We should mingle, she said, taking my arm. Nice meeting you, Claire. She steered me away, her grip tight enough to bruise. That Friday, Jada insisted on date night, our weekly ritual that had become anything but romantic. We went to Napoli's, a trendy pizza place on 49th Street, and she spent half the meal staring at her phone. Work emergency? I asked. She looked up, distracted. Oh no, just the group chat. She typed something, smiled at her screen, and set the phone down. The pizza was good. The conversation was hollow. We talked about nothing, the weather, a movie she wanted to see, whether we should repaint the bathroom. Surface-level stuff that two strangers might discuss on a first date. That night, I pretended to be asleep when she got up to use the bathroom at 11:47 p.m. Through the crack in the door, I heard her voice, low, intimate. Yeah, I'll call you later. He's asleep. She giggled, a sound I hadn't heard from her in months. My heart pounded so hard I thought she'd hear it when she climbed back into bed. She curled up next to me, her hand resting on my chest, and fell asleep within minutes. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I needed proof before I could say anything. Jada had taught me that accusations without evidence only led to punishment. And I refused to become her, suspicious, controlling, paranoid, but I wasn't going to be a fool either, not anymore. January 2020 was hell, not because of anything dramatic. No confrontations, no revelations. Just the slow, grinding misery of peak return season at FedEx. Everyone who'd gotten the wrong size sweater or decided they didn't want that air fryer after all was shipping stuff back, and my team was drowning. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week for 2 weeks straight. And through all of it, Jada's leash. She'd text at random intervals, sometimes minutes apart, sometimes hours, like she was playing Battleship, trying to catch me at an unguarded moment. 9:03 a.m. Hey babe, how's it going? 9:47 a.m. You there? 10:15 a.m. Miss you, always with the exclamation points, always cheerful, always demanding a response within 10 minutes. I felt like a prisoner on work release. The Thursday of the second week, everything fell apart. My phone charger at home had been glitching for days. You had to hold the cord at exactly the right angle or it wouldn't connect. I'd meant to buy a new one, but between the overtime and the exhaustion, I kept forgetting. I got to work that morning with 7% battery. Normally, I'd plug it in immediately. But I barely had my coat off before Greg was in my face about a mislabeled shipment, and then Marcus needed help with the forklift, and then there was a meeting about the Henderson account, and suddenly it was noon and my phone was dead. Dead. I felt the panic hit like ice water. I sprinted to the break room, fumbling with the charger we kept there, plugged in my phone, waited for it to boot up. 1 minute felt like an hour. The screen finally flickered to life and the notifications started rolling in. 11 messages from Jada. 9:03 a.m. Hey babe, how's it going? 9:47 a.m. You there? 10:15 a.m. Julian, 10:42 a.m. Where are you? 11:08 a.m. You've got 5 minutes to answer or I'm coming to your office. 11:23 a.m. Is Dakota there with you right now? 11:45 a.m. I'm going to cut off your fucking balls, asshole. 12:01 p.m. It's fine. My hands were shaking. I called her. Voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. Left a rambling message explaining about the charger, apologizing, promising it wouldn't happen again. Sent a text with the same explanation. No response. Another text. Shorter, more desperate. Nothing. Then at 12:47 p.m. 2 words. It's fine. And I knew that nothing was fine because Jada didn't forgive. Jada didn't forget. It's fine meant she'd already decided my punishment. I got home at 8:30 that night, braced for war. Instead, I got a surprise. Jada was standing at the door with a huge smile on her face. Welcome home, honey. She threw her arms around me, kissing me warmly. Her breath smelled like mint, strong mint. Like she'd just brushed her teeth. I was so worried about you, she said, pulling back to look at me. But I got your message. Charger problems, right? I picked you up a new one. She held up a brand new iPhone cable still in the package. Thanks, I said slowly. I'm sorry about not responding. It was crazy today. No buts. She pressed a finger to my lips. Mistakes happen. Let's just have a nice dinner, okay? I ordered Thai. She'd ordered takeout. Jada never ordered takeout during the week. She took pride in cooking dinner every night. I followed her to the kitchen, my unease growing. The apartment smelled faintly of something, air freshener, Febreze. Did you clean today? I asked. Just a little tidying. One of the neighbors was smoking and the smell got into the bedroom. Oh, okay. We ate pad thai in front of the TV, watching some cooking competition she liked. She was cheerful, affectionate, completely normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed the sheets. They were yellow. Our yellow set with the subtle stripe pattern. We usually changed the sheets on Sundays. Today was Thursday. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Maybe she'd spilled something. Maybe she just wanted fresh sheets, but combined with the Febreze, the minty breath, the takeout, I pushed the thought away and climbed into bed. Jada curled up next to me, her head on my chest. I love you, Julian. I love you too. I didn't sleep for a long time. The pattern continued. Friday, minty kiss when I got home, Thai takeout, faint smell of Febreze, green sheets. Saturday, minty kiss, Greek takeout, Febreze, white sheets. Sunday, minty kiss, diner takeout, Febreze, rose-colored sheets. Monday, minty kiss, Moroccan takeout, Febreze, yellow sheets again. We only owned 4 sets of sheets. Jada was changing them every single day. I checked the laundry hamper, empty. She must have been taking everything to the laundromat. Febreze to cover a smell, minty breath to cover a taste, fresh sheets to cover. What? And every night that look in her eyes, that satisfied gleam I recognized from the pants incident, the vinyl records. Every petty revenge she'd ever enacted. That goddamn look. The following Tuesday, I met Alex at the Rusty Nail after work. The bar was quiet for a weeknight, just a few regulars nursing beers and the usual Tuesday night trivia crowd setting up in the back. Alexa, the bartender, slid us 2 Budweisers without being asked. She'd been working there since Alex and I started coming in, a 30-something with sleeve tattoos and a no-nonsense attitude. You look like shit, Alex said cheerfully. Thanks. I took a long pull from my beer. I think Jada's cheating on me. Alex set down his bottle. What makes you say that? I laid it all out, the phone glued to her hand, the new lingerie I never saw, the minty breath. The Febreze, the sheets, God, the sheets. She's changing them every day, Alex, every day. Why would someone do that unless they were trying to hide something? Alex was quiet for a moment. You're sure about this, not just paranoid? I've been tracking it, same pattern every night, and that look she gets like she's won something. I've seen it before, it's her revenge face. Revenge for what? You haven't done anything. Dakota. I laughed bitterly. She's convinced I'm having an affair with a coworker I've spoken to maybe 5 times. This is her punishment. Alex let out a low whistle. That's messed up, man. I know. So what are you going to do? I stared at my beer. I need to know for sure. If I confront her without proof, she'll turn it around on me. Make me the bad guy. Say I was spying on her, violating her privacy. Makes sense. Alex leaned back in his chair. You need evidence. Yeah, but how? I can't follow her. I'm working 12-hour days. You don't have to follow her. Alex pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. Remember my divorce? I told you about the pie I hired. Jesse something? Jesse Hartwell. Retired cop does private investigation now. He's good, but expensive. Alex paused. Before you go that route, though, there's a cheaper option. What? Cameras. In your own home, it's legal. You can buy them on Amazon, disguised as smoke detectors, alarm clocks, that kind of thing, if she's bringing someone to your place. My stomach lurched. The idea of watching my wife with another man made me physically ill. But I needed to know. How much? I asked. Couple $100 for a decent setup. I can send you the links. That night, I ordered 2 cameras, a smoke detector for the ceiling and an alarm clock for the dresser. $206 with expedited shipping. They'd arrive in 2 days. 2 more days of minty kisses and fresh sheets. 2 more days of not knowing. The cameras arrived on Thursday. I installed them Friday morning while Jada was at work, hands trembling as I positioned them to cover the bedroom. I texted her that I had to work Saturday overtime. Peak season, I said. No choice. She responded with a cheerful, no problem, babe. I might run some errands. Love you. At 5:15 p.m. on Saturday, sitting in my car in the Starbucks parking lot on 86th Street, I got the notification. Motion detected bedroom. My heart hammered against my ribs. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. I didn't look at the feed. I couldn't, not yet. Instead, I sat there for 3 hours watching the timestamp on the notifications. Movement at 5:15. More movement at 5:23. Again at 5:47. Stillness at 6:02. At 8:30, I drove home. Jada greeted me at the door with a minty kiss and a smile. How was work? Long, I said. I'm exhausted. Poor baby, I ordered Chinese, your favorite General Tso's. The apartment smelled like Febreze. The bedroom had fresh sheets. Blue this time. I ate dinner, made small talk, went to bed, and I waited. The next morning, Sunday, I told Jada I had to go in for a few hours to finish up some paperwork. She barely looked up from her phone. Okay, babe, see you later. I drove to the FedEx facility, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked in the employee lot and walked to the quiet room, a little lounge area with couches and armchairs where people went to decompress during breaks. It was empty on Sundays. I sat in the corner, put in my earbuds, and pulled up the video from the night before. My plan was to listen first, not watch. I told myself that if I didn't see it, maybe I could still forgive her. Maybe we could go to counseling, work things out. Pathetic, I know, but I wasn't ready to lose her, not yet. The video started with movement, the door opening, footsteps, muffled laughter, then a voice I recognized immediately. Suck my cock, baby. Dalton, fucking Whitmore, Jada's tinkling laugh. Oh, it's so big. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to vomit. The sounds continued, wet, rhythmic, grotesque, and Dalton kept talking. God, he wouldn't shut up. Bet Julian's little dick doesn't stretch your lips like this. Slurping sounds. Does Cucky Boy fuck your throat, slut? More slurping. That's it, baby, you're so much better than Claire. I wanted to rip off the earbuds, throw my phone across the room, scream until my throat bled, but I kept listening. They moved to the bed. The springs creaked. Dalton's running commentary continued. I bet little Julian doesn't stretch you out like this. You're so tight. Tell me, does he make you feel like this? And Jada, M.Y. Jada, played along. No, never. You're so much bigger. Fuck me harder. Her moans grew louder, theatrical, operatic, sounds I'd never heard from her in 6 years of marriage. Then Dalton's voice, demanding, tell me what you're going to do, slut, tell me. And Jada, breathless, I'm gonna feed him your cum. I ripped out the earbuds. The room spun. My hands were shaking. Tears streamed down my face. Feed me his cum. Feed me his cum. That's why she'd been kissing me with that minty breath. Not to hide the taste of another man, to hide the taste of what she'd just done to him. I wanted to die. I wanted to kill them both. I wanted to rewind time and never meet Jada Patterson at that concert 6 years ago. But then I looked at the timestamp on the video. 19 minutes. 19 minutes total. Including walking in, undressing, the blowjob, everything. How was that possible? Jada was never quick. Our sex, our good sex, took at least an hour. Foreplay, the main event, afterglow. She needed time to warm up to get there. But with Dalton, 19 minutes, either he was some kind of sex god or... I forced myself to watch, not listen this time. Watch, and what I saw changed everything. Here's what I expected to see: my wife, lost in passion, giving herself completely to another man. Here's what I actually saw, a performance. From the moment they walked in, Jada was in control. Every smile, every touch, every breathless gasp was calculated. She was playing a role, the insatiable seductress, the woman who couldn't resist Dalton's masculine charms. And Dalton bought every second of it. But I knew Jada. I knew her expressions, her tells, the way her face changed when she was actually aroused versus when she was faking it. And watching her with Dalton, she was faking all of it. When she went down on him, her eyes were bored, clinical, like she was completing a task on her to-do list. When they moved to the bed, she pulled his face into her neck, not out of passion, but so he couldn't see her expression. And when he couldn't see her, her face went blank, distant. The look she got when she was enduring something unpleasant, like a dental cleaning or a long phone call with her mother. The moans were theatrical, exaggerated, designed to speed him along. And the actual sex, Dalton was terrible. Clumsy, selfish, quick. He fumbled with basic mechanics. His dirty talk was repetitive and crude. I watched my wife's face as Dalton Whitmore III grunted on top of her, and I saw nothing, no pleasure, no connection, just grim determination. And then I understood. This wasn't about desire. It wasn't about love or attraction or passion. This was punishment. Jada believed I was cheating with Dakota, so she was balancing the scales, getting revenge, the way she always did. But here's the thing about Jada's revenge. It was never about pleasure. It was about justice, divine retribution. She didn't enjoy throwing out my pants. She did it because she believed she had to. And she'd chosen Dalton, repulsive, arrogant, utterly unappealing Dalton, precisely because she wasn't attracted to him. If she'd picked someone she actually wanted, it would have been infidelity. Betrayal, but picking someone she despised? That was sacrifice, martyrdom, proof that she was willing to suffer to punish me. She was hurting herself to hurt me, and that more than anything else terrified me. I watched the video 3 times, not for some sick satisfaction. I needed to understand, to piece together the psychology of the woman I'd married. By the 3rd viewing, my tears had dried. The fury had faded. What remained was something colder, harder. If Jada could do this, choose to have sex with a man she clearly found repugnant in our bed as punishment for an imagined crime, what else was she capable of? What if we'd had kids? Would they become pawns in her revenge schemes? What if I'd done something actually wrong? What would the punishment be then? I'd spent 6 years accommodating her jealousy, walking on eggshells, accepting her quirks as the price of loving her. But this wasn't a quirk. This was pathology, and I couldn't live with it anymore. Later that day, I called Jesse Hartwell. Alex had given me his number months ago, but I'd never thought I'd actually use it. Jesse was professional, businesslike. He asked for names, schedules, descriptions, said he'd have preliminary findings within a week. "One more thing," I said. "The guy she's seeing, Dalton Whitmore, I want everything you can find on him. Personal or professional? Both." A week later, Jesse delivered. Dalton Whitmore III came from old money. His grandfather had founded Pierce and Associates back in the 50s. But despite his pedigree, Dalton's career was a joke. Jesse found records of at least 3 major screw-ups that should have gotten him fired, all quietly covered up by his father's money. And then there were the women. Mary Lawson, Ball State, 2006, got pregnant after a brief relationship with Dalton, dropped out, signed an NDA. Her son was now 13 years old, and according to Jesse, he looked exactly like his father. Danielle Porter, Purdue, 2008, something happened at a fraternity party. The hospital tests disappeared. The police report was buried. She signed an NDA too. Jesse tracked her down in Fort Wayne. She hadn't dated anyone since. Her mother said she still woke up screaming. I stared at the files, my stomach churning. Jada hadn't just chosen an unattractive man for her revenge. She'd chosen a predator, a monster who'd been protected his whole life by money and privilege. And she was willingly sleeping with him, in my bed, to punish me. That night I made my decision. I didn't confront Jada, didn't yell or cry or demand explanations. I just sent her a text with 2 video clips attached. "I know I'll be staying with Alex. Don't contact me." Then I turned off my phone, grabbed a bag I'd packed earlier, and walked out the door. Behind me, I heard her phone buzz with the notification. I didn't look back. At Alex's apartment, I sat on his couch and stared at the wall while he handed me a beer. "You okay?" he asked. "No." I took a long drink. "But I will be." My phone was off, but I knew what was happening on the other end. Jada would be watching the videos, realizing she'd been caught. Then would come the calls, the texts, the denial, the anger, the bargaining, all the stages of grief for a marriage she'd murdered. 6 years of my life ended in a 19-minute video. "What now?" Alex asked. I thought about Dalton's smug face, Jada's blank expression, the sheets and the febris and the minty kisses. "Now," I said, "I plan." 47 missed calls. I stared at my phone screen, watching the numbers climb. Jada had been calling every 3 minutes since I'd sent her those video clips. The texts came faster. This isn't what it looks like, really. Because it looked pretty damn clear to me. You drove me to this with your obsession with Dakota. There it was, the deflection, classic Jada. "Please, we can work this out. I'll go to therapy. Too late for that." "Answer your fucking phone. No, I'm sorry. Please, I love you." I turned off my phone and tossed it on Alex's coffee table. The apartment was small, a one-bedroom in Fountain Square that smelled like motor oil and old pizza, but it was clean and it was safe. More importantly, Jada didn't know where it was. Alex handed me a Budweiser and sat down in the recliner across from me. The February wind rattled the windows. Indianapolis winters are brutal, gray skies, bitter cold, the kind of weather that seeps into your bones and doesn't leave until April. "You okay?" he asked. "No." We sat in silence for a while. The TV was on, some basketball game, Pacers versus somebody, but neither of us was watching. "What now?" Alex finally asked. I took a long pull from my beer. "Now I plan." 3 days later, I called Claire Whitmore. "I need to meet," I said. "It's about Dalton." She didn't hesitate. "Foundry Coffee, Fountain Square, noon." The coffee shop was one of those converted industrial spaces that Indianapolis loves so much. Exposed brick, metal fixtures, Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. Claire was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a latte she wasn't drinking. She looked different than she had at the happy hour. More tired, more resigned, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time. I sat down across from her and slid a manila envelope across the table. "What's this?" "Photographs, your husband and my wife." At the Hampton Inn in Carmel. Claire opened the envelope, flipped through the photos, and closed it again. Her expression didn't change. "I know," she said quietly. "I've known for months." I blinked. "You knew. Dalton's not exactly subtle. The late nights, the cologne, the sudden interest in fitness." She made air quotes with her fingers. "I've been through this before." Before. College girlfriend, secretary at his old firm, now your wife. She stirred her untouched latte. "Dalton has a pattern, and his parents have a pattern of cleaning up after him." "Why haven't you left?" Claire laughed bitterly. "The prenup, 10 years of marriage, I get nothing. Under 10 years, I walk away with whatever I brought in, which was exactly 0. She met my eyes. "We're at year 8. "But if I can prove infidelity, 50% plus damages." "Now you're catching on." I leaned forward. "Claire, I need to know everything. How long has this been going on? Where do they meet? When?" She pulled out her phone and scrolled through some notes. "Hampton Inn, Carmel, Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually between 5 and 7. They pay cash for the room, but the card on file is Dalton's, which means it shows up on our joint statement." "Since when?" "October, maybe earlier." My stomach dropped. "October, that's before what?" "Before my wife accused me of having an affair with a coworker. Before she demanded I install GPS on my phone and check in every 30 minutes. I shook my head slowly. "She was already cheating on me when she started accusing me." Claire nodded like this made perfect sense. "Projection. Dalton did the same thing. Started asking where I was going, who I was texting. Classic guilty behavior." I sat back, trying to process this. Jada had created the crime before she needed it. She'd manufactured the justification for her revenge before she even started taking it. Dakota was never the problem. Dakota was the excuse. "There's something else," Claire said, her voice dropping. "Dalton brags to his fraternity brothers. He sends them pictures." "Pictures? Of her, your wife, intimate pictures." She watched my face carefully. "She doesn't know." I felt something cold settle in my chest, not jealousy that had burned out days ago. This was something else. Disgust, pity, anger on behalf of a woman who had betrayed me. "How many pictures?" "I don't know exactly, but the group chat has been active for months." I hired Jesse Hartwell that same week. We met at a Denny's on the East Side, Jesse's choice. He was a big guy, mid-50s, with gray hair and the kind of tired eyes you get from seeing too much of humanity's worst. Former Indianapolis Metro Police, 23 years on the force before retiring to become a PI. Alex speaks highly of you, I said. Alex is a good kid, got screwed in his divorce, but we gathered enough to keep him from getting screwed worse. Jesse pulled out a notepad. Tell me what you need. I told him everything. Jada, Dalton, the videos, the photos Claire had mentioned. Jesse listened without interrupting, making occasional notes. What's your goal here? He asked when I finished. Divorce, revenge, both. I want to know everything. His finances, his history, his secrets. I want to know who I'm dealing with. Jesse nodded. That I can do. Give me 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, we met again at the same Denny's. Jesse slid a thick folder across the table. Dalton Whitmore III, he said. Only child of Dalton Jr. and Margaret Whitmore. Old money. Grandpa founded Pierce and Associates Insurance back in 1952. Dalton's been working there since he graduated from IU. Never earned his position, never deserved it. I opened the folder. Financial statements, employment records, court documents. His finances are a mess, Jesse continued. He's been skimming from client accounts for at least 3 years. Nothing huge, 500 here, 1,000 there, but it adds up, about 47,000 total. Embezzlement? Technically, his father's been covering it up, moving money around to hide the discrepancies, but the old man's sick, pancreatic cancer. Doctors give him 6 months, maybe less. So the safety net's about to disappear. Exactly, and there's more. Jesse flipped to another section. Your wife has been busy. She's got 3 credit cards you don't know about, all maxed out. Total debt, $19,000. On what? Hotels, lingerie, gifts. She bought him a Rolex for Christmas, $4,000. I thought about the fights we'd had about money. The budget spreadsheets, the conversations about saving for a house, all while she was spending our money on another man. One more thing, Jesse said. I tracked down some of Dalton's past relationships. He pulled out 2 photographs. The first showed a woman in her early 30s with dark hair and tired eyes standing next to a teenage boy. Mary Lawson, Ball State, 2006. Got pregnant after a brief fling with Dalton. His parents paid her off and made her sign an NDA. The boy's name is William. He's 14 now, looks just like his father. The second photograph was harder to look at. A woman with hollow cheeks and haunted eyes, like someone who'd seen something that couldn't be unseen. Danielle Porter, Purdue, 2008. Something happened at a fraternity party. She tried to report it, but the evidence disappeared. Rape kit, blood tests, all gone. Dalton's family threatened her father's plumbing business until she signed an NDA and dropped out of school. I stared at the photograph. Where is she now? Fort Wayne, living with her parents. She hasn't dated anyone since. Her mother says she still has nightmares. I closed the folder slowly. Jada hadn't just chosen an unattractive man for her revenge. She'd chosen a predator, a monster who destroyed lives and walked away without consequence. And she was still protecting him, still lying for him, still letting him into our bed. March 2020 changed everything. COVID-19 hit Indianapolis like a freight train. Lockdowns, stay-at-home orders. The FedEx distribution center went to skeleton crews, and I was suddenly working from Alex's apartment, processing shipping manifests on a laptop while the world fell apart around us. And Jada was stuck at home, with me not there. The affair went on pause, no more Tuesday and Thursday hotel visits, but the texting intensified. I knew this because I'd cloned her burner phone. Jesse had shown me how, and now I had access to every message she sent and received. I read them at night after Alex went to bed. It was a form of self-torture, I knew, but I couldn't stop. Dalton, I miss being inside you, Jada, soon. The warehouse idiot has to go back to work eventually. Warehouse idiot, 6 years of marriage, and that's what I was to her. Dalton, I hate this. Being stuck with her, Jada, same. He keeps trying to connect. Makes me sick. Dalton, when this is over, we should go away together. Somewhere warm. Jada, I'd like that. Somewhere nobody knows us. I read those messages over and over, memorizing every word. The casual cruelty. The inside jokes at my expense. The fantasy of a future together. They had no idea I was watching. And I intended to keep it that way. April 2020. The lockdowns were in full swing, and I was meeting with my divorce attorney over Zoom. Laura Sullivan was exactly what I needed. A shark in a blazer, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She ran a solo practice out of an office in Carmel, specializing in what she called high-conflict divorces. Let me understand the situation, she said, adjusting her webcam. You have video evidence of your wife engaging in sexual activity with another man, in your home, in your bed. Correct. Indiana is an equitable distribution state. That means assets are divided fairly, not necessarily equally. Infidelity itself isn't grounds for divorce here. We have no-fault divorce, but it absolutely matters when it comes to alimony and asset division. How so? Marital dissipation. If your wife spent marital funds on this affair, hotels, gifts, whatever, you can claim that as dissipation. The court can assign those debts entirely to her. Laura smiled thinly. Additionally, video evidence of adultery, especially in your own home, is completely admissible. Indiana law is very clear on this. What about hidden debts? Same principle. Any debt she incurred without your knowledge can be assigned to her in the settlement. Laura leaned forward. Mr. Mercer, based on what you've told me, you're in a very strong position, but I need you to be patient. Don't confront her, don't tip your hand. When we strike, we do it all at once. How long? A few months. Let me file the paperwork quietly, gather documentation, build an airtight case. When she gets served, she won't know what hit her. I nodded. I can wait. While Laura built the legal case, I built my own. I moved money carefully, slowly, so Jada wouldn't notice. My overtime pay went into a new personal account. I photographed every valuable in the apartment, from the TV to my mother's jewelry. I documented every shared asset, every retirement contribution, every purchase. Then Jesse delivered another bombshell. I found something interesting, he said during one of our phone calls. Your wife consulted with a divorce attorney back in September 2019. I almost dropped my phone. September, that's before the party with Dakota, before the ultimatum, before any of it. She was planning to leave me, or planning her defense. Either way, she was thinking about divorce before she ever started cheating. Jesse paused. The consultation was with a family law firm in Broad Ripple. They specialize in protecting women in abusive relationships. The pieces clicked into place. Jada had been building her narrative for months. The accusations about Dakota, the demands for transparency, the GPS tracking. It was all designed to paint me as the controlling husband, the jealous monster. She was creating the story before she needed it. She's been calling me abusive to everyone who will listen, I said, remembering what Kelsey Monroe had told Claire. Setting up her excuse. Classic DARVO, Jesse said. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Your wife's not just a cheater, Julian, she's a strategist. Claire and I started meeting weekly. Always in public places, coffee shops, parks, once at the Indianapolis Museum of Art where Jada and I had our first real date. The irony wasn't lost on me. Claire's investigation had uncovered something explosive. He's using my father's identity, she said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. We were sitting on a bench in White River State Park, watching joggers pass by in the spring sunshine. My father's been dead for 3 years, but Dalton opened credit cards in his name, $78,000 in fraudulent debt. That's identity theft, and fraud, multiple felonies. She stared at the river, her jaw tight. My father was a good man. Worked his whole life at the GM plant in Fort Wayne, and Dalton is using his name, his social security number, to pay for hotels and dinners with your wife. I didn't know what to say. Claire's pain was different from mine, older, deeper, more corrosive. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to report him right now, today, but if I do that, she trailed off. He goes to jail and you get nothing in the divorce. The prenup has a clause, if either party is convicted of a felony during the marriage, all bets are off. She laughed bitterly. His family's lawyer thought of everything, but if I can prove the infidelity first, get my settlement, and then report the fraud. You get justice and compensation. Is that wrong? She turned to look at me, her eyes searching. Am I a terrible person for thinking like this? He destroyed Danielle Porter's life. He abandoned a child he's never met. He's been stealing from the dead. I met her gaze. He doesn't deserve mercy, Claire, and you deserve to be whole. She nodded slowly. So we wait. We wait. I needed more information, and I knew where to get it. Kelsey Monroe worked at the same dental practice as Jada. She'd seen everything, the texts, the long lunches, the satisfied smiles. And based on the glances she'd given me at happy hour, she had opinions about it. I caught her outside the practice one evening in May after Jada had left for the day. Can we talk? I asked. She looked nervous. I don't know if I know about Dalton. I know you know, I just need to understand when it started. Kelsey glanced around, then nodded toward her car. Get in, we can't talk here. We drove to a Starbucks on 82nd Street, far from the practice. Kelsey ordered a complicated frappuccino and I got black coffee. We sat in a corner booth and she told me everything. It started in October, she said. Maybe late September. She started taking long lunches, coming back with this look on her face. You know that look she gets. I knew that goddamn look. She told you about it? She bragged about it, showed me pictures of the hotels, the dinners, she said. Kelsey hesitated. What? She said you deserved it, for how you looked at Dakota at the company party. Kelsey's voice was careful, measured. She said you were emotionally abusive and controlling, she told everyone in the office. And the affair started before the party with Dakota, way before, October at least. Kelsey met my eyes. Julian, she was cheating on you before any of that happened. Dakota was just the excuse. I already knew this, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. What else did she say? She calls you names. The cuckold who doesn't even know. Kelsey winced. She thinks it's funny. She takes pictures in your bed and sends them to him while you're at work. My apartment, my bed, my sheets. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Kelsey stirred her frappuccino. Because it's not right, what she's doing to you, the lies she's spreading. I have a brother. If someone did this to him, I'd want to know. She looked up. You seem like a good guy, Julian. You don't deserve what she's doing. May became June. The lockdown started easing, and I started to break. Not visibly, I kept up the act, going through the motions of a marriage that had died months ago. But inside, the fury was building. Every night I lay next to Jada, pretending to sleep while she texted her lover. Every morning I kissed her goodbye and fought the urge to scream. Alex saw it happening. You need to confront her, he said one night at the Rusty Nail. The bar had just reopened with social distancing measures and we had the back corner to ourselves. Laura says to wait. Fuck what Laura says. You're destroying yourself, Jules. I can see it in your face. The prenup anniversary is in July. Claire needs to hit that date or she loses everything. So, that's her problem. No, I set down my beer. Dalton needs to face consequences, real consequences. If I move too early, his parents bail him out, he gets a slap on the wrist and nothing changes. Alex shook his head. You're playing a dangerous game. Maybe, but I've been playing it for 6 years without knowing. At least now I know the rules. That night I went back to the apartment. Jada was already in bed, reading something on her phone, probably texting Dalton. I got in beside her, stared at the ceiling. She rolled over and put her hand on my chest. I love you, you know. I should have said it back. That was the script, the expected response from the faithful husband. I know, I said. I didn't say I love you too. She didn't notice. June 2020. Jesse handed me a thumb drive. I got into the group chat, he said. We were back at Denny's, our usual booth, coffee getting cold between us. You're not going to like what's on there. I already knew what was on there. Claire had told me. But knowing and seeing are different things. That night at Alex's apartment, I plugged the drive into my laptop and opened the files. 47 photographs of my wife. Intimate, explicit, degrading. Some were clearly posed, Jada smiling at the camera, blowing kisses, making gestures I'd never seen her make for me. Others were taken during the act itself, her face contorted in what she wanted Dalton to believe was pleasure. And the comments beneath them. 12 men, all former fraternity brothers, all treating my wife like a trophy, like a conquest. Damn, Whitmore's still got it, she's way too hot for him, lol, is that her wedding ring? Savage cuck husband probably jerking off to these. I closed the laptop before I put my fist through it. Here's the thing, I wasn't jealous. Not anymore. The jealousy had burned out weeks ago, replaced by something colder. What I felt now was disgust, at Dalton, at Jada, at the whole sordid mess. And pity, because Jada didn't know these photos existed. She thought she was punishing me, balancing some cosmic scale. She had no idea she'd become a trophy, passed around a group chat for men to mock. She was a fool, and fools get hurt. 2 weeks later, Claire called me in tears. I found the credit card statements, she said. All of them, the ones in my father's name. How bad? $78,000, hotels, restaurants, jewelry. Her voice cracked. He bought your wife a diamond bracelet, Julian, with my dead father's credit. I closed my eyes. Claire, I want to report him right now. I want to call the police and... Claire, listen to me. I kept my voice calm, steady. If you report him now, he goes to jail, and his family's lawyers will find a way to shield the assets. You'll get nothing in the divorce. I don't care about the money. You should. You've spent 10 years of your life with that man, 10 years of putting up with his affairs, his arrogance, his contempt. You deserve compensation for that. I paused. And Danielle Porter deserves to see him fall. Mary Lawson's son deserves to know his father faced consequences. If we move too early, none of that happens. Silence on the other end, then a shaky breath. How much longer? 3 weeks, that's all. Claire, I promise you we're going to destroy him, but we have to do it right. Meanwhile, Jada was unraveling. Maybe she sensed something. Maybe guilt was finally catching up with her, but her behavior became increasingly erratic as June turned to July. First, she accused me of having an affair with Claire. I saw the way you looked at her, she said one night apropos of nothing. At that happy hour, you were laughing together. Claire Whitmore, I barely know her. Don't lie to me, Julian. I can tell when you're lying. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Then she threatened Dakota. I'm going to call your HR department, she said. File a complaint. That woman has been trying to seduce you since she started. Dakota is engaged to a guy named Marcus who works in the loading dock. They're getting married in October. Jada's face flickered surprise, then suspicion, then that cold calculation I'd learned to recognize. Well, she should act like it. A few days later, she found evidence. Look at this. She held up my jacket, pointing at something on the collar. A blonde hair. BLONDE, Julian, you've been seeing someone? I looked at the hair. Straight, about 6 inches long, definitely not mine. And definitely not there when I'd hung up that jacket 2 hours ago. She'd planted it. She'd actually planted evidence of an affair that didn't exist so she could justify the affair that did. I didn't argue, didn't defend myself, just let her rage, let her accuse, let her spiral. And I recorded every word. The lockdowns eased, the affair resumed. I told Jada I had a week of 12-hour shifts coming up. Peak summer season, I said, can't be avoided. In reality, I spent those days parked outside the Hampton Inn in Carmel watching. Jesse was with me sometimes, taking photographs with a long-range lens. Other times I was alone, drinking coffee and watching the entrance like a hawk. Over 3 days, I documented 4 separate visits. Jada arriving at 5:15, checking her reflection in the car mirror before going inside. Dalton following 10 minutes later, looking around nervously. The two of them leaving separately, Jada with wet hair because she'd showered before coming home. Dalton groping her in the parking lot, his hand on her ass as she giggled and pushed him away. I photographed it all. Timestamps, license plates, room numbers. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. On July 8th, Claire called. The anniversary is next week, she said. July 15th, 10 years exactly. Are you ready? I've got the divorce papers drawn up. The evidence is compiled. I've already tipped off Dalton's employer about the embezzlement, anonymously so they can't trace it to me. And the fraud charges. I'll file those after the divorce is settled. Once I have my share, he can rot in prison for all I care. I sat in my car outside the apartment, looking up at the window where Jada was probably texting her lover. July 15th, I said. We do it at the same time. Coordinated strike. What time? 2 o'clock. I'll serve Jada at the apartment. You served Dalton at his office. Maximum shock, minimum time to coordinate a response. Claire was quiet for a moment. Julian, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked at that window, thought about 6 years of marriage, the woman I'd loved, the life we'd built, the bed she'd defiled. I'm sure. The week before July 15th was the longest of my life. I filed for divorce on Monday through Laura Sullivan. The papers were drawn up, signed, and ready to serve. Laura held them in her office, waiting for my signal. I changed every password I had, email, bank accounts, social media, everything. If Jada tried to access anything after the confrontation, she'd find herself locked out. I moved $15,000 into my personal account. My share of our joint savings, calculated down to the penny, not a cent more. I wasn't going to give her ammunition to claim I'd stolen anything. I contacted a locksmith and scheduled an appointment for July 16th. New locks on every door. And I packed Jada's things, not all of them, just the essentials. Clothes, toiletries, her laptop, some books. I put everything in boxes and hid them in the garage, behind the Christmas decorations we never used. When she came home that night, she didn't notice anything different. How was work? She asked, kissing me with her mint-fresh breath. Fine, long, poor baby, dinner's almost ready. I watched her move around the kitchen, humming to herself, completely oblivious. This was another side of her, the domestic goddess, the loving wife, another mask. I wondered if any of them were real. Thursday night, I had dinner with Claire. Not a date, not yet anyway, just two people on the precipice of something momentous, needing to talk to someone who understood. We met at Bluebeard, a restaurant in Fountain Square known for its farm-to-table menu and intimate atmosphere. The kind of place you take someone when you want to talk without being overheard. I can't sleep, Claire admitted, pushing food around her plate. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face, that smug, entitled face. It's almost over. Is it? Even after the divorce, he'll still exist. He'll still be out there being Dalton. Not the same Dalton. I sipped my wine. Right now, he thinks he's untouchable. He's been protected his whole life, by his parents, by his money, by his connections. Tomorrow, that ends. His wife is leaving him, his job is gone, his reputation is destroyed. He's going to have to be someone else. You really think he'll change? No, but he'll have to pretend to, and that's something. Claire reached across the table and took my hand. It was the first time we'd touched like that, deliberate, meaningful. Thank you, she said, for making me brave enough to do this. You were already brave, you just needed someone to watch your back. She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. Same time tomorrow, 2 o'clock, don't be late. I woke up on July 15th at 6 a.m. Jada was still sleeping beside me, her face peaceful in the early morning light. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful in the morning before the masks went on. I lay there for a long moment, watching her breathe. Remembering the woman I'd fallen in love with at that concert 6 years ago. The woman who'd spilled beer on my shirt and stolen my heart. That woman was gone. Maybe she'd never existed at all. I got up, showered, dressed, made coffee. Jada stumbled into the kitchen around 8, yawning. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. She poured herself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. Big day at work? Something like that. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire, papers filed. Ready when you are, I typed back, 2:00 p.m., don't be late. Jada glanced at my phone. Who's that? Work. She nodded, already losing interest, scrolling through her own messages, probably planning her afternoon rendezvous. There wouldn't be one, not today, not ever again. At 1:55 p.m. I came home early. Jada was in the living room, surprised to see me. What are you doing here? I thought you had. Sit down, Jada. Something in my voice made her freeze. She'd never heard that tone from me before, cold, controlled, final. Julian, what's going on? I set my folder on the kitchen table, opened it slowly, spread out the photographs, the receipts, the transcripts of text messages I'd taken from her cloned phone. I know about Dalton. The color drained from her face. What? I've known since January. The cameras I installed caught everything. I watched her expression cycle through shock, denial, the beginning of rage. The Hampton Inn, Tuesdays and Thursdays, the $19,000 in credit card debt, the photos he's been sharing with his fraternity brothers. You've been spying on me? You've been fucking another man in our bed. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Julian, it's not. I can explain. Don't. I cut her off. Don't insult me with excuses. I've heard them all already in your head. You drove me to this. It was Dakota's fault. I had no choice. I shook my head. Bullshit, all of it. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I pulled out the consultation record from September 2019. You visited a divorce attorney 4 months before the FedEx party, before Dakota. Before any of your accusations against me, you were planning this. Her mouth opened, closed. For once in her life, Jada Patterson had nothing to say. I handed her the divorce papers. Sign these or don't. Either way, this marriage is over. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. You can't. We can work this out. No, we can't. I stood up, grabbing my keys. You chose Dalton Whitmore. You chose punishment over our marriage. You made your decision, Jada. Now I'm making mine. Julian, please. I was already at the door. Your things are in the garage, boxes by the Christmas decorations. You have 30 days to get the rest. Where are you going? I turned to look at her one last time, the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd married. The woman who destroyed everything we'd built because she couldn't control her need for revenge. Somewhere you're not. I walked out and closed the door behind me. I made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I pulled into a CVS parking lot, killed the engine, and sat there staring at nothing. Then I started laughing. Then crying, then laughing again. My phone rang. Claire. It's done on my end, she said. Her voice was shaking too. Dalton's a mess. His boss called security to escort him out. How do you feel? Silence. Then, free. For the first time in 10 years, Julian, I feel free. I looked out the windshield at the Indianapolis skyline, the city where I'd grown up, gotten married, built a life. The city where everything had fallen apart. "It's over," I said, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. There was still Dalton to deal with, and I intended to take my time. The confrontation lasted 47 minutes. 47 minutes to dismantle 6 years of marriage, 3 years of lies, and whatever delusions Jada had built up in her head about who was the victim here. I'll walk you through the highlights. After I showed her the photographs, the receipts, the transcribed text messages, Jada cycled through the classic stages. First came denial. "This isn't what it looks like," she said, her voice shaking. "Julian, I can explain." "Explain what?" "The hotel receipts. The $19,000 in credit card debt you hid from me. The fact that you've been sleeping with Dalton Whitmore since October." Her face went white. "How do you?" "I installed cameras in our bedroom, Jada, the one you defiled with that sweaty, pathetic excuse for a man." Denial shifted to anger fast. "You've been spying on me, you had no right." "I had no right." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You brought another man into our home, into our bed, and you want to talk about rights. You drove me to this," she was screaming now, her composure completely gone. "Your obsession with Dakota, the way you looked at her, the way you—" "I never touched Dakota." "Liar, I never touched her, never kissed her, never even had a conversation with her outside of work." I pulled out another document from my folder. "But you know what I did find? This." I slid the paper across the table. Jada stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. "What is this?" "Your consultation record from the law offices of Margaret Chen in Broad Ripple, September 2019. I watched her face carefully. "A full month before the FedEx party. Before you ever saw me talk to Dakota." The color drained from her cheeks. "You were planning this," I said quietly. "You were already thinking about divorce before any of this happened. Dakota was just the excuse you needed." "That's not, I was just exploring my options." "You needed me to be the villain, Jada, so you could justify becoming one yourself." I picked up the document and put it back in the folder. "But here's the thing, I wasn't cheating. I wasn't even thinking about it. You created a monster to fight, and then you became the monster." She started crying then, real tears, not the manipulative ones I'd seen so many times before. Her whole body shook with sobs. "I thought. I saw the way you looked at her." "You thought. You didn't ask, you didn't trust, you punished." I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. "And your punishment is always 150%, isn't it? 3 dresses, 10 pairs of pants, 1 conversation with a coworker, how many times with Dalton?" She couldn't answer, just sobbed. I waited until she'd calmed down enough to hear me. Then I dropped the next bomb. "There's something else you should know." She looked up, her mascara running down her cheeks. "What?" I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Jesse had sent me. Screenshots, dozens of them. "Dalton's been sharing pictures of you with his fraternity brothers." "What?" 47 photos, intimate, explicit." I turned the phone so she could see. "He's been passing you around like a trophy." "Look at the comments." Jada grabbed the phone, scrolling through the images with trembling fingers. Her face went from pale to gray to something I can only describe as broken. "No, he wouldn't. He did, for months. Every time you thought you were punishing me, you were giving him ammunition." I took the phone back. "You weren't his lover, Jada. You were his conquest. Proof that he could take something from another man." She doubled over like she'd been punched in the stomach. The sound that came out of her was animal, raw, wounded, betrayed. Ironic, isn't it? The betrayer betrayed. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought he—" "You thought he cared about you. Dalton Whitmore doesn't care about anyone except himself." I stood up, gathering my folder. "But that's your problem now, not mine." While I was having this conversation with Jada, Claire was having her own with Dalton. She told me about it later, and it's worth sharing. At exactly 2:00 p.m., Claire walked into Dalton's office at Pierce and Associates Insurance. She was wearing her best suit, the one she'd bought for job interviews but never used, and carrying a binder full of documents. Dalton looked up from his desk, surprised but not alarmed. "Claire, what a pleasant surprise is everything." She dropped the divorce papers on his desk. "I know about Jada." His face didn't change. Classic Dalton, he'd been caught before and talked his way out of it. "Honey, I don't know what you've heard, but I know about the embezzlement." That got his attention. His face twitched. "I don't know what you're talking about." $47,000 over 3 years, skimming from client accounts. Claire opened her binder, showing him the documents. I have copies of everything, bank statements, transaction records, the works. Those are private company documents. How did you? I also know about my father. Dalton went pale. You opened credit cards in his name. My dead father's name, $78,000 in fraudulent debt. Claire's voice was steady, but her eyes were blazing. You used his social security number, his identity, to pay for hotels and dinners with your mistress. Claire, I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I've already contacted your employer. HR is waiting for you after this conversation. She smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. 10 years, Dalton. I waited 10 years for this moment. Baby, please. Don't call me baby. Don't call me anything. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Enjoy your afternoon, Dalton. I hear unemployment is exciting. I handed Giada the divorce papers at 2:47 p.m. Sign these or don't. Either way, this marriage is over. She looked at the papers like they were a death sentence. Julian, please, we can work this out. We can go to therapy. Therapy? I shook my head. Giada, you slept with another man in our bed to punish me for a crime I didn't commit. You spent $19,000 of our money on hotels and gifts for him. You told everyone at your office that I was abusive and controlling. I picked up my keys. There's no therapy for that. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. The husband who does what you want, apologizes when you're angry, accepts whatever punishment you think he deserves. I looked at her one last time. I'm not that person anymore. Where are you going? Somewhere you're not. I walked out the door without looking back. I made it 4 blocks before I had to pull over, the Kroger parking lot on 54th Street. I sat there with the engine running, staring at nothing. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight, and then I started laughing. Big, heaving laughs that turned into sobs that turned back into laughs. 6 years, gone in 47 minutes. My phone buzzed. Claire. It's done on my end, she said. Her voice was shaking too, but there was something underneath it. Relief, freedom. Dalton's a mess. His boss called security to escort him out. How do you feel? A long pause, then, free. For the first time in 10 years, Julian, I feel free. I looked out at the Indianapolis skyline, gray and familiar in the July afternoon. The city where I'd grown up, gotten married, built a life. The city where everything had fallen apart. It's over, I said, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. There was still Dalton to deal with, and I intended to take my time. August 2020. The dominoes started falling. First, Dalton's professional life collapsed. Pierce and Associates Insurance launched an internal investigation within a week of Claire's anonymous tip. They found everything: the skimmed funds, the falsified records, the creative accounting that had kept Dalton's theft hidden for 3 years. $47,000, give or take. He was terminated immediately. No severance, no recommendation, no golden parachute. Just a security escort to the door and a cardboard box full of personal belongings. The Indiana Department of Insurance revoked his license 3 weeks later. Criminal charges for fraud followed shortly after. His father died during all of this, pancreatic cancer, just like Jesse had predicted, and the inheritance that was supposed to be Dalton's safety net got tied up in probate disputes and legal fees. His fraternity brothers distanced themselves fast once the group chat got exposed. Turns out nobody wants to be associated with a guy who shares intimate photos of married women without their consent. Several of them were married themselves, and their wives had questions. Dalton Whitmore III, golden boy of Pierce and Associates, was suddenly very alone. Giada's fall was quieter but just as complete. She tried to fight the divorce at first. Her attorney filed a motion claiming entrapment, that I had deliberately created the conditions for her affair by installing cameras without her knowledge. The judge dismissed it immediately. Indiana law is clear. You can record anything that happens in your own home, and adultery is adultery regardless of how it's documented. Kelsey Monroe testified on my behalf. She was a star witness, documenting every lie Giada had told about me being controlling and emotionally abusive. She confirmed that the affair started in October 2019, before the FedEx party, before any of Giada's accusations. Giada's reputation at the dental practice was destroyed. She resigned in late August, unable to face her coworkers after the details came out. Last I heard, she moved back to her parents' house in Terre Haute, 70 miles away. Good, the farther the better. The divorce was finalized in September. Laura Sullivan earned every penny of her fee. The settlement was brutal for Jada. I got the house. We'd bought it using my mother's inheritance as the down payment, and Laura made sure the court recognized that. I got my full retirement account, which Jada had tried to claim half of. I got my mother's jewelry back, the pieces Jada had borrowed over the years and conveniently forgotten to return. Jada got her car. Her debt, $42,000 when you combine the affair spending with the hidden credit cards. Her destroyed reputation, and nothing else. No alimony. The documented adultery made sure of that. She didn't show up for the final hearing. Her attorney submitted the signed papers, and that was it. 6 years of marriage dissolved with a signature. I walked out of the Marion County Courthouse into the September sunshine, a single man for the first time in 7 years. The air smelled like cut grass and exhaust fumes, normal Indianapolis smells, life going on. Alex was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. "It's done," he asked. "It's done." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Beers tonight, the rusty nail?" I thought about it. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for months was finally lifting. "Yeah, beers tonight." There was one more call I needed to make. I'd been thinking about Danielle Porter ever since Jessie told me her story. The woman Dalton had destroyed at Purdue back in 2008. The one who still had nightmares 12 years later. I found her phone number through Jessie's research. She was living in Fort Wayne now with her parents, 32 years old and still afraid to date. "Hello." Her voice was hesitant, guarded. "Ms. Porter, my name is Julian Mercer. I don't know if you've heard, but Dalton Whitmore. I know who Dalton Whitmore is." Her voice went cold, hard. "I'm calling because I thought you should know. His wife divorced him. He lost his job. He's facing criminal charges for fraud and identity theft." Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then, "Is this real?" "It's real. The divorce was finalized last week. The criminal case is pending, but his lawyer's already talking about a plea deal." More silence. Then a sound I couldn't identify at first. It took me a moment to realize she was crying. "I never thought," she whispered. "For 12 years, I never thought anyone would believe me. I believe you, and I made sure it mattered." She cried for a while longer. I waited. "Thank you," she finally said. "I don't know who you are or why you're doing this, but thank you. Take care of yourself, Danielle." I hung up and sat in my car for a long time, thinking about justice. About the difference between punishment and accountability. About all the people Dalton had hurt over the years and how his money had always protected him. Not anymore. October 2020. Dalton took a plea deal, 2 years probation, full restitution for the embezzlement, a felony on his record that would follow him for the rest of his life. His insurance career was over permanently. Claire's settlement came through around the same time. She got the house, half of Dalton's retirement account, and monthly payments for the next 5 years. Total value, approximately $280,000, not bad for 10 years of misery. After the dust settled, Dalton moved to Muncie to work at his uncle's used car lot. The same uncle who'd always been the family's disappointing member, the one who didn't go to college or marry well or achieve anything that the Whitmores considered worthwhile. Fitting. I saw him once, about a month later. I was filling up my tank at a gas station on the east side when a rusted Hyundai pulled in a few pumps over. The driver got out, and for a moment I didn't recognize him. Dalton Whitmore III, former VP of Pierce and Associates Insurance, looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 months. His face was gaunt, his hair unkempt, his clothes wrinkled and cheap. He saw me. Our eyes met across the pumps. He looked away first, scurried to his car without finishing his transaction, drove off like he was fleeing a crime scene. I finished filling my tank and drove away without a word. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. October 2021, 1 year later, I'd moved on with my life. The house was fully mine now. I'd repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, made it something new. The bedroom where Jada had betrayed me got completely redone. New bed, new dresser, new everything, no more ghosts. Work was going well. I'd been promoted to operations manager at the FedEx distribution center, overseeing the entire West Side operation. Better pay, better hours, actual respect from the people around me. Claire and I had started something. I'm not sure when exactly it shifted from friendship to romance, somewhere between the weekly coffee meetings and the late-night phone calls, I guess. We took it slow. Both of us were damaged, cautious, afraid to trust again. But we were also honest with each other. That counted for a lot. Life was good, but I hadn't forgotten Dalton Whitmore. The video still played in my head sometimes, late at night. His voice, smug and superior, talking about cucky boy while he fumbled through mediocre sex with my wife. The comments he'd made about me, my body, my performance, my supposed inadequacy. He'd lost his job, lost his wife, lost his money. But had he really faced consequences, or had he just moved on to the next chapter of his life, secure in the knowledge that he was still better than everyone else? I needed to know. I needed to show him that he wasn't. The phone call was simple. Hello? Hey, Dalton. It's Julian Mercer. Silence. Then confused, Julian. I figured it was time you and I had a little talk. A snort, some of the old arrogance creeping back into his voice. I can't imagine what we'd have to talk about, cuck. There it was, that word again. Well, Dalton, it's like this. You still have a job, and I still have a video. More silence. Longer this time. What do you want? Meet me at 3 Olives, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. And if I don't, then I send the video to your uncle, your mother, everyone at your new job. I paused. Your choice. I showed up 5 minutes late on purpose. The strategy was simple. I wanted Dalton to feel comfortable, in control. I wore jeans and a casual blazer, unshaven, hair a little messy. He'd be in his best suit, the one piece of his old life he'd probably held onto, trying to project the image of the man he used to be. Let him think he had the upper hand. Let him feel superior. It would make what came next so much sweeter. 3 Olives looked exactly the same as the last time I'd been there. The leather chairs, the hunting prints, the pretentious cocktails. Some things don't change. Dalton was at a corner table, martini already half empty. He looked better than he had at the gas station, but not by much. The suit was expensive but dated. The confident posture couldn't quite hide the desperation underneath. Julian! He didn't stand to greet me. Of course not. That would suggest we were equals. Dalton. I sat down across from him, ordered a beer from the waitress. Thanks for coming. I don't have much choice, do I? He swirled his martini. What do you want? Money? I don't have much left, but I don't want money. Then what? I smiled. Closure. He laughed. It sounded forced. Closure? Your wife chose me, Julian, a better man. What kind of closure do you need? I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I pulled out a folder and set it on the table. When I was planning my revenge, I said slowly, I did a lot of research. It's amazing what you can find when you have the time and motivation. What is this? I opened the folder and pulled out the first photograph. A woman with dark hair, tired eyes, standing next to a teenage boy. Remember Mary Lawson, Ball State 2006? Dalton's face went pale. She had a baby about 6 months after leaving school, named him William. I tapped the photograph. He looks just like you, don't you think? Same chin, same eyes. DNA's a funny thing. There's no way you can prove. Young William didn't sign an NDA. His DNA is ironclad proof of paternity. I leaned back in my chair. I wouldn't plan on going into politics. Dalton's hand shook as he reached for his martini. Missed. Tried again. I pulled out the second photograph. This one was harder to look at. A woman with hollow cheeks, haunted eyes, the kind of damage that never fully heals. Danielle Porter was harder to find. She's in Fort Wayne now, living with her parents. I kept my voice even, matter of fact. She hasn't dated anyone since 2008. Her mother says she still wakes up screaming sometimes. Those accusations were never. The rape kit disappeared. The blood tests vanished. She signed an NDA after your father threatened her family's business. I met his eyes. But we both know what happened at that party, Dalton. We both know what you and your fraternity brothers did. I'm leaving. He started to stand. Sit down. My voice was quiet but firm. Finish your drink. We have a lot more to discuss. I pulled out a thumb drive and set it on the table. And you have a lot to lose. He sat. For the next 20 minutes, I systematically dismantled everything Dalton Whitmore believed about himself. Did it ever occur to you how much your parents shielded you? I asked, sliding another document across the table. The Goldfarb account, for instance. You lost $500,000 on a mistake that an intern would have caught. By all rights, you should have been fired. That wasn't my fault. A secretary? A secretary took the fall for you, got a nice payout and a sterling recommendation in exchange for her silence. I tapped the document. Your parents transferred $30 million into their account at Pierce and Associates the week after the Goldfarb mess. That's in addition to the $150 million already there. Dalton stared at the numbers, his face gray. They were paying your salary, Dalton. The brokerage fees, the commissions, the profit sharing, it all came out of their account. You weren't an employee. You were the world's highest paid intern. I was a VP, he whispered. I worked on major accounts. You shuffled papers on major accounts, and I guarantee they had someone checking your work to make sure you didn't screw up again. I shook my head. Most of the secretaries there did higher risk work than you. The only reason you had that title is because Mommy and Daddy bought it for you. His hands were shaking now, sweat beading on his forehead. Good, time for the final blow. There's one more thing, I said. The video, Dalton flinched. I've watched it a few times, analyzed it, you might say. I leaned forward. And I noticed something interesting. I don't want to hear this. When most men are with a beautiful woman, they can't stop talking about her. How gorgeous she is, how good she feels, how lucky they are. I paused. But you couldn't stop talking about me. His face went red. That's not my cock, how big it is, whether it compares to yours, whether I stretch her out like you do. I kept my voice clinical, detached. You spent more time thinking about my body than you did about hers. Shut UP. How long is Julian's cock? How wide does Julian fuck her like this? I shook my head slowly. It's funny, Dalton, you were in bed with a beautiful woman and all you could think about was another man. Stop it. He was sweating profusely now, his face crimson. You literally had an orgasm imagining me eating your cum. Does that seem normal to you? I'm not. He couldn't finish the sentence. I'm not saying anything, Dalton, just what I saw, what you'll see when you watch that video. I slid the thumb drive across the table. Claire's had a copy for a year, this one's yours. He stared at it like it was a snake. I pulled out a second thumb drive. And this, I said, is a video of me and Mrs. X. Her face isn't visible and we blurred the distinguishing features. But I think you'll recognize her voice. His eyes went wide. It's 2 hours long, I smiled. And I didn't mention you once. Dalton Whitmore, heir to old money and older privilege, curled up in his chair like a child. His hands were over his ears. His breathing was ragged, wheezing. I'd seen that look before, on Jada's face when I showed her the group chat photos. The look of someone whose entire self-image has just been shattered. I stood up and dropped some cash on the table for my beer. It's not a big thing, Dalton. Whatever's going on in your head, accept it and move on. He made a sound like a wounded animal. But the other stuff, the ruined lives, the fatherless kid, the made-up job funded by Mommy and Daddy, I shook my head. Yeah. I'm judging you for that. I walked out of 3 Olives without looking back. The Indianapolis night was cool and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing deep. It was done, all of it. The revenge I'd been planning for 18 months, executed perfectly. Dalton Whitmore would never look at himself the same way again. Every time he thought about that video, every time he remembered my words, he'd wonder. Question, doubt. That was worse than any punishment his parents' money could have bought him out of. I got in my car and drove home. October 2022, 1 year later. I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Claire singing in the kitchen. Off-key, as always. She claimed it was intentional, artistic interpretation. But I knew better. I loved it anyway. The house had changed a lot in the past 2 years. New paint, new furniture, new everything. The only things I'd kept from before were my mother's jewelry and a few photographs, Alex, Jesse, my late parents. Nothing of Jada, that chapter was closed. I got dressed and headed downstairs. Claire was at the stove making eggs, still humming that terrible song. Morning, I said, wrapping my arms around her from behind. She leaned back into me. Morning yourself, sleep well? Best I have in years. It was true. The nightmares had stopped months ago. The anger had faded. What remained was something I hadn't expected, peace. Life had gotten good. I'd been promoted again at FedEx, regional operations manager now, overseeing 3 distribution centers across central Indiana. The salary was twice what I'd made as a shipping coordinator. The respect from my colleagues was something I'd never had before. Dakota Reeves got her promotion too. She sent me a thank you card when it happened, thanking me for the career advice I'd given her back in 2019. The advice that had started all of this. I kept it on the refrigerator. A reminder that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs you. Kelsey Monroe left the dental practice not long after the divorce. She works at a hospital now, doing something in administration. We text occasionally, nothing deep, just checking in. Alex is still Alex. We have beers every Sunday at the Rusty Nail, same booth we've had for 15 years. He's dating someone new, a teacher named Rosa who laughs at his terrible jokes. I think she might be the one. Jesse Hartwell retired for good last spring. He sends Christmas cards every year with updates on his grandkids. The last one said, "Best case I ever worked." I think he meant it. Claire moved in 6 months ago. Neither of us was ready for marriage. That word still carried too much weight, but we were ready for something, a partnership, a life together, built on honesty and trust and all the things our first marriages had lacked. She still had bad days. Nights when she'd wake up angry, remembering all the years she'd wasted on Dalton. I'd hold her until it passed, and then we'd make coffee and talk until dawn. I had my own bad days too. Moments when I'd think about Jada, about what could have been if she'd just talked to me instead of assuming the worst. But those moments were getting rarer. We were healing. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. I heard from Jada once about 6 months after the divorce. A text message late at night, "I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. What was there to say? Kelsey told me she'd moved to Cincinnati eventually. New job, new apartment, new life. She was dating someone, a guy from her office, apparently. I hope she learned something. I really do. But knowing Jada, knowing her need for revenge, her inability to accept blame, probably not. Some people don't change. They just find new victims. Dalton was harder to track, but Claire kept tabs through mutual acquaintances. He never married again, never held another corporate job. Last anyone heard, he was still at his uncle's used car lot in Muncie, selling Hondas and Toyotas to people who had no idea who he used to be. His mother cut off financial support about a year after our confrontation. Claire heard he'd asked for money one too many times, and she'd finally had enough. For the first time in his life, Dalton Whitmore III was living without a safety net. I thought that would make me happy. It didn't really. It just made me feel tired. All that effort, all that planning, and in the end, what did it accomplish? Dalton was still Dalton, just a smaller, poorer version. But then I'd remember Danielle Porter's voice on the phone. The relief when she realized someone finally believed her. Maybe that was enough. October in Indianapolis is beautiful. The leaves turn gold and red, covering the sidewalks in crunchy carpets. The air gets crisp, carrying the smell of bonfires and fallen apples. It's the kind of weather that makes you want to sit on your porch and watch the world go by. That's what Claire and I were doing when she asked the question. Any regrets? I thought about it, really thought. The pain of discovering the affair. The betrayal of watching that video. The long months of planning and waiting, the confrontations, the aftermath, the slow, grinding work of rebuilding a life from scratch. No, I said finally. Everything I lost led me to everything I found. Claire smiled and leaned into me. Good answer. We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Indianapolis. The city I'd grown up in, gotten married in, been betrayed in. The city where I'd learned what I was capable of, both good and bad. I thought about who I was 3 years ago, trusting, naive, afraid to confront problems head-on, living in a marriage that was slowly poisoning me, too scared to admit it. That man was gone. Someone better had taken his place. Scarred, but whole. Harder but not cruel, cautious but not closed. Hey, Claire said softly, what are you thinking about? I kissed the top of her head. How different everything is now. Good different? Yeah, I smiled. Good different. People ask me sometimes what I learned from all of this. I used to give complicated answers about trust and betrayal and the importance of paying attention to red flags. But lately I've simplified it. The best revenge isn't living well. The best revenge is becoming someone who doesn't need revenge anymore. I spent 18 months planning Dalton's destruction, building evidence, coordinating strikes, orchestrating his downfall. And yeah, it was satisfying. Watching him crumble at 3 Olives, seeing his whole self-image collapse around him, I won't pretend that didn't feel good. But the real victory wasn't destroying Dalton. The real victory was building something new. A life. A relationship. A version of myself that didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Dalton's still out there somewhere, selling used cars and drinking too much. Jada's in Cincinnati, probably making the same mistakes with someone new. They're both living with the consequences of their choices. And me? I'm sitting on my porch with the woman I love, watching the leaves fall in the October twilight, grateful for every single thing I have. Some lessons you have to learn the hard way. This was one of them, but I learned it, and I'm never going back.